Today we're going to be building this FAQ accordion. If you're new here, hi, my name is Zoe. I'm a software engineer and former university professor who loves to teach folks how to code. If you're interested in learning how to code, you can check that first link in the description. Alright, so the page that we're going to be building here, the component, is just this like FAQ accordion. When you click on it, it drops down. Pretty simple design. Grabbed it from Frontend Mentor over here. And again, it's one of the free challenges. So if you want to do this and follow along, you can definitely do that. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I think this is a great portfolio piece because it just shows you it's something you can add to other projects as you build out your portfolio. So let's get started. All right. First things first, I've started up an app already, and we have our little homepage there. I'm using my Mux TS app starter, so Material UI, Next.js, and TypeScript, but you can definitely do it with JavaScript as well. And yeah, you can grab that on my GitHub account. So first things first, as always, I'm going to create a components folder. And let's take a look at the design. So we're going to need, we have this like general background here, and then we have our actual FAQ container, and then the actual questions. Okay, I'm not going to focus too much on the background to start with. I want to start with the FAQ container. So let's do FAQ container. And then I'm going to create, save that, and then I'm going to create a question accordion. Let's go accordion. Yeah, let's do question accordion. Okay, and whoops, cool. And what else do I need? We'll start with that and then we'll move on from there. All right, so first thing we need is the FAQ container. I'm going to bring that into our app. I've also downloaded the starter code from Frontend Mentor, not really because I wanted to start with their like HTML file, but because to grab their images. So we might use some of those in the build. But first, let's drop in the FAQ container here. Cool. And we should be seeing that. Perfect. Seeing that up there. Awesome. And then I'm just going to center it. Oh, you know what? I also need to modify this. I have these like default styles that I need to take care of. Let's say go HTML body padding 0. Go margin. I'm just doing a bit of a reset here so that we don't have that weird like extra padding. You can also do this using a reset CSS file or something like that. And so then now for this, I'm going to say height, width is 100 width. Okay, and then we're going to say display flex. And then we're going to say justify content center. Oh, interesting. Okay, I'm going to say align items center. Overflow none. Because we're just building like a singular component here. If this was a larger web page, I wouldn't put overflow none or things like that, but just a literal singular component should be okay. Oh no, it's still overflowing. Overflow, or no, it's overflow hidden. Very important that you use the right properties, and that still might not fix it. Yeah, let's try putting it on here. Let's say overflow hidden. Where is that coming from? It's the body. Okay, so maybe I should set the body to 100 view height. Height 100 view height. And then if I change my box so it's not 100 view height, There we go. Okay, cool. So we'll set the body to 100 view height. And then my box now is going to be, okay, so it's short now. So let's say height. Let's try 90 view height. Let's say 95. Okay, cool. Good enough for me for now. So we have our container centered on the page, and now we want this like pink situation for the background. So let's see what colors we're working with. It's like a light pink. Yeah, it looks like a light pink. So I'll grab that for the background color. So we'll set that for our like global background color. Say background color is going to be this. I don't even know if it took. It's so light. I don't think that's the right. Is that the right one? Yeah. Let's try it here. Oh, you know what? It wouldn't take because this is so large. There we go. Okay, cool. So we'll get rid of that. But that means we do need to fix the padding. Let's see. Body, we say margin 0. Okay, body margin should be 0. Maybe I need to put it in globals. There we go. All right, cool. So we have our background. That is set. Now we can actually make our container's background white. So we'll do that. We'll say container. We're going to use a box for Material UI. And we'll say box. We'll say background color white. Cool. And then we'll say padding. Let's do like 2 rem all around. Cool. Let's do some border radius of like 2 rem all around. Cool. And then now we need to add in all this information. All right, so we have like our header, our FAQ header at the top here. So we'll use a typography element for that. And the reason I'm changing these is just so I don't get the use client error here. So within our typography element, we're going to say FAQs. Whoops. FAQs. And we'll say variant equals H1. Cool, good enough for me. And then we're going to do these questions, add these in here. Okay, so let's see, what's the best way to do this? Probably create some sort of JSON with the question and the answer. That might be the best way to do this. Okay. Let's do another folder, data, and then we'll do a new file. We'll call it data.json. And then in the data.json file, we're going to say const data equals, or sorry, we'll just say actually, no, let's not put it, we'll put it in a data.json after. Let's just finish building it up first. All right, so we have our question accordion. And what we're going to do, we're going to use some mock data for now. We're going to say const question answer equals an array of objects where the question is going to be what is Frontend Mentor and why will it help me? And the answer is going to be this one here. And we'll just use that for now. And we'll create, oops. Create 3 of those, 4 of those, 3 more. Perfect. All right, cool. So we have our mock data there. Then what we want to do for question answer, we want to map over each QA. And for each QA, we want to return a question accordion. And we're going to pass QA. There must be a better way to call this, but we're going to pass QA to that. And then we're going to say the key equals QA, oops, QA dot question. Cool. Then now it's giving me an error because I haven't explicitly said we need to accept that. So we'll say question answer, say interface props, and we'll say question, oops, question answer is going to be, it's going to have a question that is a string, oops, string, and an answer that is also a string. And that's going to be the prop type here. And again, if you're doing this with just JavaScript, you don't need to worry about this piece right here. All right, now it's giving me an arrow. Yep, I did mean QA. Thank you. Okay. Cool. So that seems to be working. There we go. Question accordion, question accordion. Now here, let's make it a box as well. We are going to display our questions. So it's the tricky bit with accordions is that, you know, you're displaying this and then on click you display more. So it's a bit of a CSS challenge in that sense. I mean, most of these are CSS challenges because we're doing web dev, but yeah, it's a CSS challenge in that sense. So let's start by displaying the question. So we'll say typography. And we'll say, we're going to say question. I'll say question. Cool. So that's one. And then we'll say, we'll do another one for the answer. Cool. So how do we want to do this? We want to say, oh, we need the button, right? The button is going to be next to the question. So we'll probably wrap this in a box. Oops, box. And we'll say, we'll do a button. Import button from material/button. And actually, this is gonna have to be a client component anyway. But all right, cool. So we have our button, and then just fix up the style a little bit. Good. And then I'm gonna wrap the answer in a box as well. Gonna give it a fixed width so it doesn't go across the whole page. 520. Cool. And that's sort of like the basic gist of it. Now we need to hide this unless clicked. So I think what I'm going to do for this, I'm just going to use state. I'm just going to say like use state and just show it or hide it based on whether or not the button has been clicked. So we're going to say const show answer set show answer, use state false. We're going to start with false, and then I think I'm going to have to change to a client component. Use this client. Okay. And then if true, we can set the display to be true. So we'll say display should be show answer. Or not display. Display display should be show answer. If true, display flex. If false, display none. It's either none or hidden. Okay, cool. And then on click, we're going to just set it to be set show answer to be the opposite of show answer. Okay, cool. So awesome. Now we have it showing. Perfect. So that's basically the gist of the accordion, but we can make it a little bit nicer now. So if you were just here for the logic, that's the logic, but let's make it a little bit more stylistic right now. So first things first, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to set a fixed size for this. So let's do 600 by 565. That's going to help with the jumping up and down. So this is this box. So I'm going to say width. What was it? 600 by 565. Cool. And that's going to be the fixed size. So now you see it's not jumping up and down anymore, which is great. Then they appear to be centered. The questions at least appear to be, are they centered? Yeah, somewhat centered in on the question itself. So I guess we'll say they're not really centered though, are they? They're just, they don't take up the whole width. Yeah, because this is not centered. Oh, you know what it is? The component is centered. The pieces are spaced between. That's what needs to happen. All right. And it should actually be flex. No. That's fine. Space, justify content, space between, and then we're gonna say width, oops, not width, it's gonna be 500 pixels. We'll do more than that, we'll do 540 pixels. Or put it to 2 rem on each side. It's 32, 32. All right, let's do 500 pixels. What I think I need to do is add there we go. So now it's all in line. Cool. Or maybe we just don't need that much padding. We could do maybe 1 rem, and then 30. Leave it at 2 for now. Okay. So we have that. Oh, and you know what? This now. Justify content center. Ooh, do I need justify content center? Width. I think I need it here. direction is going to be column. I would also say align items to the center. Okay, not bad. What's going on here on the right? Okay, let's make it 35. I'm just gonna make it a little bit wider. One round. I'll say that at 2. Maybe there's just no margin left on this one. Okay. Cool. What else? Still don't love that extra like little padding there on the side. I think it's just because it's not wide enough, right? 37, 39. Anyhow. All right, so we need to remove the margin here. Oh, you know what it is? It's just not wide enough. And I think that's probably part of the problem. We need to just have a set width for everything. So we can say const width equals this, and then we'll just change it in one place. Oops. Not good to change it. Oh, just those 2 spots. Cool. Awesome. All right, so yeah, the next thing we're gonna do is just fix up the styling a little bit. So let's take a look at this a little bit more closely. So there's a hover state. This is actually a different color. This is a pale purple color, so we can already start just by setting that. So we'll say for our typography here, the answer, we're gonna say color is that. So that'll give that a nice color. Awesome. We're gonna actually make this a little bit more bold. So we'll say font weight for that. We'll put it to 600. We'll save that. And then we'll say, we'll say comma and, comma and hover. We're gonna say the color should be this pink, as they call it. And hover, color is going to be that. Awesome. And then, okay, so then on click, we want to change, first of all, we want to set the background color of this. So let's fancy up this button a little bit. So we'll say background color is going to be that same pink. And then we're going to say, okay, border radius is going to be 50%. Make it a, oh, nope. Let's say 50%, then we'll change the width. We're going to say width is 1 rem. Let's take a look at this. Actually, you know what? I might just use a regular button so I don't have to fight with Material UI. Oh, no, but I want to use the SX Pro. Alright. We'll fight with it. We'll fight with Material UI. Alright. There we go. We'll say 2 rem. Say maybe 3 rem. Alright, 2 rem. And we'll say min height is going to also be 2 rem. What else? Padding is 0. All right, cool. That looks pretty decent for me. So we have the buttons, and then we're gonna say, and on hover, we want the background color to be, I think it's black, right? Or is it like dark purple? Sorry. It's gonna be dark purple. Okay, cool. And then we want the actual color of the text to be white regardless. So color, cool. We'll save that. All right, awesome. Not looking too bad. So then now on click, so if show answer is true, we then want it to stay on black. So say background color, we'll say if show answer is true, and not black, sorry, dark purple, we want it to be dark purple. If show answer is true, be dark purple, else be pink. So boom, and it stays. Awesome. Last thing we want to do here is if show answer is true, we want to display, if show answer is true, we want to display a minus, else we want to display a plus. So I'll probably have to put those in quotes. So it's like show less, show more. Show less, show more. So that was really quick there. And yeah, I think we can just do up the styling a little bit better now. So let's just make some more space. So when it's open, that's a good amount of space. I think what I want to see generally is just a little bit more space between the questions. So there, it looks like there's some padding, and that there's actually like a dotted line, I think. Is that a dotted line? Or no, just a regular line between each question. So I guess you can say, is it on the bottom only or on the top? Let's say border bottom 1 pixel solid and then light pink. And again, I think if you're doing this for a portfolio project, you should really spend the time to make, like an individual color styles file and things like that, because you're just doing this really quickly for the purposes of a tutorial. Not strictly necessary, but still would recommend it. And then we're gonna say padding, top bottom 1 rem and 0 left and right. I think we could even maybe get away with 2 rem. .5 rem. We'll say margin top 1 rem. Cool. And that looks pretty decent, I think. I think I might add a little bit more space underneath margin bottom, the question. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that looks pretty decent. What else can we add? Let's see if we can add in this little star and fix up the background. So the star should be in this images folder. Oh, they even have icons for the plus and the minus. We made our own. Background pattern, icon star. So this must be it. So we'll go back to our FAQ container, next to our FAQs, and then I'm going to need to import an image, or use an image from next component. We'll say source equals, let's copy the relative path, put it there. I think it's just /images. And we're going to say the height is 35, height is 35, width is also 35, and we're going to call alt equals star icon. We're going to save that. Let's see. There it is. Awesome. Cool. So then I'm just going to add, how should we do this? We'll add a little padding, margin to the right. Yeah, we'll say style equals margin right. We'll do 1 rem. We'll save that. Awesome. Looks pretty decent. The last thing we're going to try and do now is adding in this like background situation here. So let's see what that gives us. So we have our background pattern. Oh, it's just desktop and mobile. Okay, cool. Copy the relative path for that. And we're going to want to do that on our actual page itself. So if we go back to our app and go to our page, we'll say we have the FAQ container, and then we have the box that's holding everything in. We want this background image to be on the top half. So we could just do another box and absolute position it. Box. Or we just do the image and absolute position it. Try that. Alt equals background image width. Ooh, what is the width? Because it wants like actual width. 1440. Height is 320. I'll say that. Okay, not terrible. I'm going to say style, equals top 0. Oh no, I think I need to say position absolute first. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to say z index -1. Is that? No. Z index of 1. And then maybe I change the z index of the container to like 5. Awesome. That's pretty much it. We're going to be building this web page right up here. If you're new here, hi, my name's Zoe. I'm a software engineer and former university professor who loves to teach folks how to code. If you're interested in learning how to do front-end development, check that first link in the description below. One thing I always tell my students is how important it is to establish a daily habit of coding, and with this challenge, that's exactly what we're trying to do. So if you want to check out the other videos in this series, I'll link them down below and at the end of the video. But without further ado, let's hop into today's challenge. All right, so today we're going to be building this like single page launch website here. So pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and hop into the code. So first things first, I'm going to hop into these 2 pages and just clear them out, these 2 files, CSS files. And you'll see it just automatically just cleared out all the sort of default styles that I had put in there already. I'm using a starter file that I have on my GitHub account, the Muxt Material UI, Next.js, and TypeScript app router starter, but you can use literally anything to build this. This I just used because it was quick. And you can also use that if you're interested. I'll link it down below as well. All right, so looks like we have just a basic launch page with some icons and an email validator in the middle here. Okay, not too bad. Let's go ahead and get that started. So I guess one thing I'm going to do first, I'm going to create a new folder for my components. And I'm going to say, let's see, and we need to access our page, which is just going to be all in one page. I guess we'll start with this. I also dropped in the assets, so let's see what assets we have. We have our logo. Okay, so let's start with the logo. Get rid of this typography element, and we'll say, we'll use an image from Next.js. Well, source is going to be /images/logo.svg. And we're going to say our alt is going to be logo, and then we'll grab our width and our height from our Figma. And all these projects, all these challenges are from Frontend Mentor, so if you do want to check them out and do your own challenge, or do this challenge, you can check it out there. So we're going to do, the width is 90, height is 39. It's 90, height is 39. And we're going to save that there. Okay, awesome. Cool, updated, perfect. Looks a little squished. But those are the dimensions it's calling for. All right, we'll see how this goes. All right, so the next one we need is, we actually do need a typography element. We are launching soon. So we'll drop that underneath. We'll say typography. Variant. I guess that's going to be for each one. We are launching soon. I'm just going to wrap this in a span because soon was bolded. And I'm going to add a style here. I'm going to say font weight is going to be, let's say 600. Oh, and you know what? I need to set the font weight generally to be 500. So that it, oh, maybe even less. 400. So that it pops. And then what color is this? This is actually a different color. So we'll say the color is going to be color, and then the color of this I think is going to go back to black, but let me double check. It might not be complete black. Yeah, usually you don't get black on white because it creates an unpleasant visual experience, so it's usually something very close to but not exactly black. And then down here, subscribe and get notified. I'm just going to say typography, drop that there, and that's going to be size 20, that same, not black color, and then font size is going to be, what, 1.25 rem, we'll save that. Cool, decent. So we have those three, and then now we need our email validator and a notify me button. Now there's a couple of ways we can do this. We could do it using something like Material UI. You know, we can actually access I'm sure they have an email component that we could leverage here, or we could build it manually. So let's take a look and see what they have here. They have like a form control API. And you'll see that when you use their forms, you get a lot of like sort of built-in functionality. So we could do that, or we can build it manually. Let's start trying to build it manually. If it gets too taxing, too complicated, no, we can build it using this. But no, I think we should be all right. All right, so let's start with, I think it's an input we need here. So we're gonna say, and this one I'm actually gonna put in another component file. We'll say new file. Email.tsx, because it is going to be a client component, and Material UI, or not Material UI, Next.js is not going to like that. So we're going to use that, drop this in here. Cool, so far so good. I'm going to say input. open this. We'll just leverage their styles. If they have anything interesting. Maybe not. Okay. Alright, maybe we'll have to just style it ourselves. So we'll say input. Let's see what color this is. Looks like there's a little, yeah, this like light blue. We'll say border, 1 pixel, solid, whatever color that is, light blue. Okay, cool. We'll say border radius equals 2 rem. Cool. We'll say placeholder, I believe it is, your email address. And then the button is notify me. Oh, and maybe I need to set the color. The color I think is the same as the border. Cool. And let's see how wide this is. 421 pixels. So we'll set that. Add a little bit of padding there. And then the notify me button next to it. So say button. And that's going to be this color. Is the color already white? No, it's not. It's a color. It's going to be white. And then we're going to copy that because we want them to kind of match. Copy the padding. We could also create like a base thing, but that's not really necessary. It's going to be 200 pixels wide. And we're actually going to give it a height of 56 pixels, 3.5 rem. All right, cool. So that looks pretty decent. Yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, right now there's no validation. All right, let's finish out the design and then we'll add in the validation. All right, so one of the last things we need here is this image. So back on our page, we're gonna add in another image, and I'm assuming that we have a relative path for that. Source is gonna be that. We're gonna say alt example. Not really sure what we're advertising here. 640 by 383. So width is going to be 640. Height is going to be 383. Save that. Cool. There we go. And then we have these favicon. Oh, I don't think we actually got those. All right, so we'll skip that. We didn't grab those images. But this is pretty much the website. So I'm going to just go ahead and center everything really quickly. Okay, cool. Looking pretty good. I think the height of this could probably be a little bit less. Maybe let's go with 29. This is the logo I'm looking at. Awesome. I'm gonna add some margin. Say margin, top bottom, 40 pixels. Oh, you know, I added it to the wrong component. That's why it's not working. All right, so we'll say style equals that margin. There we go. Much better. And then this one. That looks good. Subscribe and get notified. I'll say margin bottom. Oops, bottom 25 rem. And we'll say margin top 1 rem. Cool. And then this margin bottom is 94. That's the email. Bottom 94. Whoops, 94 pixels. Imagine 94 rem, that'd be way too much. All right, so we'll save that. Cool. Maybe even a little bit too much space because we don't actually need all of that space. Yeah, there we go. That looks pretty decent. And I'll add some margin to the right of that. Awesome. Looks pretty good. So I think we're design-wise we're set. Let's actually make this do something now. So what we want to do is when a user inputs their email address, we want it to like return something. Let me see if they have anything in the design. Okay, so it says please provide a valid email address when you click on the button. So that's basically using some sort of email validator. So again, we could do this with Material UI. We could see if we have an email validator. No. Okay, let's do email validator. JS. And let's see how we can do this. How can I validate an email address in JavaScript? Let's see. Using regular expressions, we could do that. Oh, that's just going to tell me what a regular expression is. All right, so we could try something like this. Cool. That could work. This validates in use, do not use. All right, so let's try something else. Google to get a proper regex. All right, let's try, see what that. AI. All right, is email. Okay, so this could be valid, might be valid. Let's see. And again, we don't want to go like super crazy with this. We just want something that works well enough. Let's try this for now. So this is just using regular expressions to test whether or not the input we put in is valid. So I'm going to say const is email. I'm just going to use that to test whether or not what we've input is an email. And we're going to say email is of type string. And so then, let's see, we want to, on the input, we want to, on change, I guess. change we want to say is email e.target.value, I believe. And we're going to try console.log email. Let's see if we get an answer there. So let's inspect. Whoops. Just want to see console here. And we'll say, okay, cool. So we're getting what we're typing in. Perfect. So yeah, just targeting the target value of whatever it is. And we'll say if it is email, and so return, okay. So that's a checker for the email. Now we need to do something with this information. So we'll say const validator. So we'll run the is email check. So we'll say email is email with email. Const is valid email equals is email. If is valid email, then we want to, I'm going to use state again, const use state, const is valid, we're going to say set is valid, valid equals use state, false. If is valid email, I'm going to set is valid to true. This is going to be a type string. And then if is valid, else set is valid to false. So actually, let's start with use valid. Let's say true. We'll set started as true, and then the border for our input is going to be, let me check the design. Yeah, so it should change to red. So it's going to start out as this, and we're going to say is valid, and if it is valid is true, then it should be that. If is valid is not true, however, it should be this pink kind of color here. All right. And then we're going to call the validator, instead of his email, we're going to call the validator with that. Might work. Let's try it. So when we start, it should be nothing. Then when I type, yes, it's invalid. But if I say e@gmail.com, it's valid. Perfect. All right, cool. So that's pretty much the validator right there. And then obviously once you click notified me, you'd want to send it somewhere. So let me just run through what we did. So we got this regex email checker, and it's basically checking to see if, based on what characters are provided to it, whether or not it's in the correct format of an email. I'm not saying that this is the best regex email checker validator, you know, just what we found, as you saw, looking online. So then what we did, we went to our input component here, and we said on change. So every time the user types a new letter, a new key, we want to take that event and get the target value of that event. And then we want to pass that to our validator. What our validator is going to do is it's going to call our isEmail validator, and it's going to save it to a variable that says isValidEmail. If it is a valid email, it's going to set our state of isValid to true. If it's not, it's going to set our state of isValid to false. IsValid is basically just our border. We're just using it for CSS at the moment, but we could actually use it to prevent submission. Is what it's going to say is if it is valid, we're going to change the color back to blue so it looks normal and with the design. But if it isn't valid, we're going to change it to red, this like reddish pinkish color, to say, hey, you're doing something incorrectly. And then when you click notify me, we could hook it up to actually send the result somewhere and say, hey, they've sent a valid email. And again, there's a lot more you could do. You could say, please provide a valid email address. We could actually just drop that in the bottom here. We could say, please provide a valid email address. Again, this is all just based on whether or not is valid is true. So if valid, if is valid, if not is valid, we do that. Oh no, if it is valid, do that. We're just going to set it to this color, which is our red. And so you'll see please provide a valid email address. So again, we'd have to fix up the style a little bit, but we can basically use this check to initialize different actions, show different things on our page. Today, we're going to be using an API to build this advice generator. If you're new here, hi, my name's Zoe. I'm a software engineer and former university professor that loves teaching folks how to code. If you're interested in starting a career in web development, check that first link in the description below. But without further ado, let's hop into day 8 of the challenge. All right, so this is a really simple design. We're not going to spend too much time focused on the design today. We're really building this to challenge ourselves by working with an API. So, yeah, basically what happens here, you have a piece of advice that's going to show up, and then when you click this dice, it's going to roll, and you're going to get another randomized piece of advice. Now, again, I got this design from Frontend Mentor. This is another one of their free challenges, so if you want to go ahead and follow along, I'll leave a link to this design down in the description below. So the first things first, just looking at the information they provide here, they actually give you the API that they want you to work with, which is basically what's going to give us our advice. So when I open up the API in a separate tab, or the documentation, I should say, it's going to tell me exactly what I need to know in terms of how to use it, how to grab a specific piece of advice by ID, if I can even search the advice if I want to do that. We're going to do a more random piece, so we're not going to do that. We're just going to use the first endpoint that they provide here. But one great thing you can do when you're checking to see if something works, just go ahead and open up the URL in another tab, and you'll see if it's actually working. And this will actually show you also the structure of the data, so you know how to actually query it and get the actual piece of advice more easily, actually. And yeah, if you refresh, you'll see you get a new piece of advice every time, so you know that it's working correctly. Awesome. So I've gone ahead and spun up an app, just again using that starter that I'll link in the description below. So let's hop in there and get started. I've also taken the assets from the they give you a starter kit when you work with Frontend Mentor. They give you like some starter assets, and so you can use that as well from them. So I dropped that in the app already. So first things first, clean up these styles. Oops. Clean up this style. And the background color for this is going to be, I think, this dark blue. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and set the body, the HTML, to be, oops, have a background color of dark blue. Awesome. I'll leave that alone. And then we'll get onto the actual design. All right, so it looks like basically we have this card in the middle, and that's going to be our advice. So I'm going to create a folder, components, and again, it's probably going to have just one file in here, and I'm just going to say advice. And I'm going to bring this advice component into here. So say add, whoops, I should also actually create it, but I'm going to bring advice in here. And that's basically going to be the structure of the app. Another thing I do need to do actually is set the center it in the page. So we'll say center, and height is going to be 98 by 9. All right, now we can go back to our advice. So yeah, for the advice, again, we're using Material UI here. So I'm going to use a box from Material UI, basically just a div that allows us to use their special properties. And we see it in the middle there. Perfect. So we're going to use this as the background color for our advice. What is that, a grayish blue? Yes, that's a grayish blue. So that's going to be our background color here. So say background, oops, background color is going to be grayish blue. And then what else do we need? We need some sort of like button here. And then we're going to grab, I guess, the piece of advice. Maybe the ID will be the number and then the actual advice itself there. And then this button is going to be our trigger button. Okay, so we'll drop in a couple of typography elements. So we'll start with that. Say typography. And it's going to be advice number, and then I'm going to say const. I'm just going to set a variable. We're going to say ID equals 0. And we'll say ID for now. We're going to structure it differently once we set it up. And then we're going to have a second typography element, which is going to be, it's just going to be advice. And we'll say const advice equals a string. And so we have the base set up there. We also have this like HR. I'm wondering if this is an image that they provide to us. Pattern divider. Yeah, they do have a divider. So I'm just going to copy this path and see what it looks like. So we'll drop that in here. We'll say image from next image. And the source is going to be that. And the alt is going to be divider. And then the height is going to be 16. Width is going to be, I don't know, let's say 196. I'm not sure what they're giving us exactly. Okay, so it's just that. So it's going to be 20. All right, so we'll put that there. And then we have the die button at the bottom. So we'll say button. Background color is going to be neon green. Cool. And then within the button, oh, we should also import the button from somewhere. Within the button, we're going to have the die. So we'll say image from next image, copy relative path, source equals that. And we'll say the alt equals dice icon. Height is going to be 24. Width is going to be 24. I'll save that. And, oh, source. There we go. Perfect. What else? Oh, we need it to be top down. So we'll say display flex direction column. Save that. Looking good. And then the button itself, max width is going to be 64. Which is 4M. Oops, 4M. Max height 4M. Save that. And we'll say a little bit of padding. Okay, and then we'll say border radius 58%. Cool, got a little circle button there. Awesome. What else do we need? I think maybe an HR, a horizontal rule. I don't know if that's gonna look great. HR. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. So let's do that. Let's make a box and make the two little HRs there. What did I say, 196? 96. Oops. Make a second one. Or no, we also need the color. What's the color of that? Grayish blue. Okay. Or is it border? Oh, does it blend in now? What is the back? Oh yeah, it's the same as the background color, so that's not going to show up. So this must be dark grayish blue. That's what that is. Yeah, that must be dark grayish blue. Yeah, there it is. Oh, okay, they're already there. I don't need to worry about creating a horizontal rule. Just couldn't see them. All right, cool. Get rid of this box. Awesome. Makes my life easier. Perfect. Width then is going to be, oops, did I accidentally delete it? Width is going to be 444. Cool. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Looking pretty good. Flex direction column. Align items, oops, to the center, so they're all lined up nicely in the center. Good. And then we'll throw in some padding, and that'll pretty much be our styling. This is going to be neon green. This is going to be light cyan. And then this is going to have 24 on top. 24 on top. Or let's say 24 below the advice. And 40 of 2.5 rem. Yeah, and then we can translate the button down as well. We could say position absolute, or we could say relative. Top. Oh. Okay, cool. And then we have our button there. Awesome. And the corner radius. All right. Border radius. 50 pixels. Okay. Good to go. Good to go here. So yeah, let's hook it up to the API now. So what we want to do for our API, so we already know which API we're using, obviously. It's going to be this URL here, right? We're going to perform a get on this URL. So a couple ways we could do it. We could do it in a use effect, or we could try and put it into a function. Let's try put it into a function. If not, we'll put it in a use effect. So we'll say const get advice. And we'll say fetch this, then response, we want to turn it into JSON, Then we want to take that data and we want to set our data. So let's create const data, const advice data, or then, yeah, let's call it advice data set advice data equals use state, and we'll initialize it to be ID is 0, advice is an empty string, and we'll say set advice data to be data. We'll save that, and then we'll also turn this into a client component so it doesn't complain. Cool. And again, you don't need to do that if you're not using this starter kit. That's just a quirk from it. So we're going to fetch it. We're going to take the response, turn the response to JSON, then get the data from the JSONified data from that, and then set the advice data to that. And so in theory, on click, we want to do this. So we'll say on click, get advice. And that should be it. So now if I console.log advice data, let's see what happens. Inspect, console, okay. Ah, nice. So we get slip, advice, ID. Perfect. Okay. I don't know what the slip is for, but we'll go with that. So it's working. We're getting what we want here. So what we want to do now is we want to do two things. We want to create a use effect, and we'll say, so when we start up, we want to just call get advice. So we get an initial piece of advice. And then here we actually want to take advice data dot ID, although it's going to be dot slip dot ID. Let's see, how can we do this? Yeah, I guess dot slip dot ID. Slip dot ID. So we'll say slip, just because that's how it comes back from the API. I'll save that. Cool, dot slip dot ID, and then we'll do advice data dot slip dot advice. We'll save that. Cool, so we can get rid of these two placeholders. And that should work, so let's try it here. So if I refresh, if you find yourself distressed about something, ask yourself, it will still matter tomorrow or next week or next month. Advice number 133. If I press the button, awesome, we get it again. Perfect. So seems to be working pretty well. I think the only thing we might want to do is just put a max width and maybe touch up the styling here. So we can say max width is 540. So we'll say max width 540 pixels. And make this into, turn it, it's light cyan already. What size? Quote 28. Okay. So we'll say add font weight, and then text align. And then the other little thing is that it puts it in quotes, so we'll add a quote. Ooh, that's gonna make it difficult, isn't it? Yeah, we'll do this. Okay, so quote there. And yeah, that looks pretty decent. I think we're good there. So yeah. So yeah, we made our advice getter. So yeah, basically just to go over what we did here, right? We initialized advice, and again, this is a lot of TypeScript stuff. You don't necessarily need to do it if you're not using TypeScript, but we created a function that allowed us to fetch and get advice that set our advice data to what we got from that that API, and then we called it once when our page loaded so that we would get the advice initially when the app started up, but then we set our button, our on-click for our button, to be just calling that function of get advice and setting our variable to get that advice. And we have our advice getter here. So if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button below. If you want to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe, and I'll link the rest of the videos in this challenge right up here so you can check them out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.